Winning the culture war, that is the topic of tonight's byline. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, the idea of winning a culture war. That term can seem so dated, but the reality is it's not. And whether you want to participate or sit idly by, well, the war will be waged by the other side. And as I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking, how do we stand up? What do we do? How do we push back? And it hit me. We need to normalize traditional Canadian attitudes and values again. Now, tonight, I'm going to specifically talk about winning the culture war as it relates to gun owners who often don't see themselves as part of the culture war. But believe me, fellas, you are. And for those of you who don't see guns and gun ownership rights as your issue, well, just remember, if the government can confiscate a rifle without compensation simply because a bureaucrat issued a ruling from their desk in Ottawa, then anything you hold dear is at risk. We live in a society that sees guns as evil, something to be feared. Didn't used to be that way. You used to be able to order your shotgun and shells from the Eaton's catalog. They'd come by mail. You could buy them down at your local hardware store or Canadian Tire. And seeing boys walk through town with a .22 over their shoulder as they went to the woods to shoot squirrels or do target practice, well, that wouldn't be odd at all. But now a man loading his own gun into a car in his driveway while getting ready to take his son out for a day of outdoors adventure, well, that results in an arrest at gunpoint. It happened last weekend in Kelowna, British Columbia. A neighbor saw a gun. They automatically called the cops, who showed up in force with their guns drawn, treating this man like a criminal. They've since apologized, but how did we get here? Well, we got here because guns became denormalized in our culture. It's why a group of Alberta universities and colleges feel the need to produce a video and a training program on how to deal with a deranged gunman on campus. Let's face it, this isn't a regular occurrence in Canada. Dawson College was in 2006. École Polytechnique was 1989. Before that, there were a few shootings like this in the 1970s. Not a whole lot going on, but this is an issue because people are afraid of guns and because guns have become denormalized. It's why this election happening in Ontario, you've got a leader not afraid to campaign on a program that will see every school have a policy for transgendered students in grade 3. And that's seen as normal, but she also wants to ban handguns. Most of the media thinks all of this is just dandy. Trannies in elementary school are more normal to some in our political and media class than gun ownership. That's got to change. Realistically, most Canadians are more likely to know a gun owner than a 9-year-old dealing with gender identity issues. But to our cultural gatekeepers, one is now normal, or at least needs to be championed, and the other needs to be suppressed. So what to do? Well, keep up pressure in terms of lobbying your MP, the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers to change laws. That's important. And then when things go wrong, like High River, you need to keep up pressure on the bodies that investigate it. It's been almost a year since the High River gun grab, and sadly, we don't have a report yet. It was supposed to be out in December, then June. Now we're told August. I'm not worried, though. I think this report will show what happened. Consequences will be had from this. But there's more to be done. More than lobbying, more than pestering politicians. Because you can change the laws, but if the culture is still suspicious of law-abiding gun owners, then all of this can happen again. Gun seizures, gun registries, and more. What we need to do is normalize gun ownership, and that requires what we might call evangelization. Talking to people about guns, taking people to ranges. Maybe you take 5 people for a day of fun shooting at the range, and you might get one that'll take up the sport. Maybe you get that brother, cousin, or friend from work to join you on a morning duck hunt. If everyone did that, the gun community would grow exponentially. And even those that didn't take up the sport, well, they wouldn't be afraid of firearms the same way they were. The more people are exposed to firearms, the more comfortable they will be with them and with others having them. Lots of gun owners want to be silent about their use of firearms. They see it as a security issue, or they just figure it's no one else's business. I get that. But what you need to do is dispel suspicion. Dispel the idea that the only people into guns are kooky, untrustworthy nut jobs. It's not like that. That's not reality. The reality is there's millions of you. Don't hide this fact. Talk about it. Brag about it. This is part of the process of normalizing something. And if it's normal, then you don't end up with fathers on their knees, guns pointed at them, cops yelling at them as their kids sit in the car just waiting to go out for a day in the woods with dad. You'll get fewer politicians willing to call for gun bans or gun confiscation because it will become politically impossible to do so. And you'll have fewer police officers willing to kick down doors to steal guns in emergency situations. Individual gun owners can't change the law on their own, but each of you can change the culture in your own sphere of influence. And That, in turn, can change the country. And that's the byline.